right, good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Pfeiffer. This is Conversations on Retail, and I am here today with my friend Yatin Shelar from Turtle's Egg, a brand new e-commerce marketplace that he has launched. And so excited to spend some time with you this morning. How are you?
Good, Matt. Thank you for having me on your show, on your site. And if anybody's listening in, has joined us, thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So you and I got to know each other in Bentonville. It's been several years ago. We were hosting a conference there for consumer product entrepreneurs, and that's when you and I had an opportunity to meet. I'd love to kind of talk about Turtle's Egg. First of all, what is it? I know that you were kind of at the very beginning of this journey, not so much the very beginning, because I know you and your team have worked hard for some time to stand it up, but in terms of users being able to access it, it's still very much at the beginning. But tell us what Turtle's Egg is.
Turtle's Egg is a pure marketplace play. We've been at it, like you said, we've been at it for almost 2 years, building the site. It's a multi-seller site where it's very similar to an Amazon, but we focus mainly on promoting the sellers and making sure that they are visible and they are the forefront of the marketplace's focus. One can sell almost any kind of product except a few items that are restricted, you know, the typical adult drugs, firearms, and we don't allow used except for books. Okay. Turtle's Egg basically grew out with the experience that we have had selling on various marketplaces. And it started with a simple idea is, can we build a site taking away some of these pain points that sellers feel? There are a lot of brand owners, manufacturers that would love to be on a marketplace, but feel there's a little disconnect, there's a little disadvantage in doing so. From all aspects, one is by brand control, or also from alienating their retail partners. And so we have built a platform where a brand owner and a retailer can coexist and really help grow their sales.
Yeah. So you've been in the game for a very long time as an apparel manufacturer and as an entrepreneur. Yes. I'd love to, before we dig more into Turtle's Egg and what it is that you and your team are doing today, I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. Talk about, you know, where you grew up and what childhood was like, all the way really through your university experience.
I grew up in India, in a used to be a small little university town called Pune, or now it is called Pune.
And that's in Western India near Mumbai, correct?
Yes, it's 100 miles from Mumbai. Okay. And my whole childhood, I grew up playing tennis. So as a student athlete, the focus was a lot on tennis tournaments, traveling across the country. So after college, after finishing college in India, I got a scholarship for a small Division III school in the US. And that's what brought me to America. And I moved on from a Division III school to a Division I school, and tried to play satellites and make a little money as a semi-pro. It's tough as a tennis player, but that's what I did. And in 1989, started a small factory in North Carolina manufacturing clothing. Uh,
Well, so that seems like a big jump forward from playing competitive tennis to starting a factory. Did you have any kind of background in manufacturing, or
no,
what?
actually,
Okay,
none whatsoever.
so what led you to that decision then?
As a tennis player, I injured my shoulder, and that put me out of commission.
Hmm.
Took about 2 months driving across the country just by myself, had a dog, and drove from end to end in this country, just searching. And so either I was going to go back to India, or just be a tennis teaching pro, or I was open to ideas as where do I go from here? At age 21, these are tough questions. And thought about I've always had passion for clothing, and got the concept of creating a line of tennis wear. And we started this on, and when I say we, it's also my wife, who was still my girlfriend at that time, started a very basic line of tennis wear, mostly women. And what we learned, jobbing it out, outsourcing it, is one loses control over production. One loses control over delivery schedules. My background in tennis helped me a lot in regards to making the right connections with the tennis pros that manage these pro shops, these small retailers, including a very well-known tennis center on Hilton Head Island. They were very supportive of my venture. So I've met a lot of good people along the way who have given me that boost.
Yeah. Now, did you or your wife, either one, have any kind of entrepreneurial background, entrepreneurial family, entrepreneurial experience, anything that would have gone from got a good eye for fashion?
Right. My girlfriend, no. She was still in college at that time. But my father has always been an entrepreneur. Back in India, we have always been our own business owners. So evidently there was something that got passed on to me.
Yeah, well, and at least it wasn't something. I think a lot of people have ideas and are very ambitious, but it's the fear of the unknown that keeps them from taking a step out. And so if you grew up in it and saw your father in it, it's not like it was no big deal, but you kind of knew what to expect.
Yes, and I'm sure quite a few of your friends are in the apparel business, and they know that it is a very unforgiving business, and one just learns as you get into it. But I don't think I have ever, Matt, I have never approached a business looking at how much money I can get out of it. It is basically, I've always approached it as, can I make a difference? Can I add value to my vision as well as to the consumer? Because we, at a time when Nike and Adidas and all these big guys were going heavily into neon, I mean, it was just overwhelming. I came out with a line that was very simplistic. And that really gave us a huge entry because it wasn't available at that time. But then the other aspect of manufacturing and delivery, being constantly dependent on somebody else, took its toll. We were running late on deliveries. So we decided to start a factory, a small factory up in the mountains of North Carolina. Beautiful place to be. And I was able to hire the right managers, technical people. But I also am one of those guys that I like to know. So whether it's an operator sitting on a machine, whether it's a manager doing production planning, I like to put my hands in it and learn and listen and know. And that's how I understood that business from a very basic level.
Yeah. Now, where did that seed funding come from for that factory that you opened in North Carolina? Was it from tennis winnings? Was it from the success of your first entrepreneurial endeavor, manufacturing? Did you raise the money?
Um, it definitely wasn't from tennis winnings. At that
Okay.
time, prize money was very little, and the
Okay.
smaller tournaments, you were happy to put gas in and get back home.
Okay.
But it was basically on a threadbare. We bought used machines. We started on an extremely low budget. And again, just before starting the factory, I had taken a summer course at Wharton. They're amongst the best business schools in the world.
Yeah.
And so in that short period, I quickly grasped how business plan needs to be done, whether it's for funding, whether it's your realistic approach, short-term, medium-term, long-term. And they were pretty good at making you see and know what the financial world expects you to put on paper if you're looking for any money. That helped me borrow a line of credit, or rather than borrow, get a line of credit from an extremely small bank in Tennessee. The manager just took a liking for me, and he let me know that the funding, the line of credit that he has opened for me is not because of my business plan or how much money he thinks I would make, but he just felt he can trust me with his money. That was a different take. That was quite heartening from a banker at that time.
Yeah.
It was just a small loan of $60,000. And so we started out with that. All fabrics were bought in the US, production and the whole bit was done in the US. But I quickly realized that when you own brick and mortar and you have employees, they have to have work 12 months a year. The tennis business is a seasonal business, and the quantities are small. So I went to Wilson Sporting Goods, and I was able to get a test order to do their practice football pants. Those white football pants with laces that everybody wears in high school and college. And that's where my private label venture started. And it grew enough where I had the courage to go to VF. And I was able to get orders from them for under their Janssen brand. And of course, the factory grew in the same way. But what I learned from the VF people is tremendous systems, quality systems, production systems, accountability, and they invested. Their engineers used to come into our factory and help us. And this really took me to another level of manufacturing. We were doing Janssen brand for JCPenney for them. So all this was a learning curve on a constant basis. Unfortunately, NAFTA happened, and the growth that we had planned in that little town in North Carolina had to come to an end. It was a sad story because you get to know your workers, you get to know your team really close. It's not just a number, but we had no choice. Both our customers basically said they're moving their production overseas, and they gave us a 6 months leeway, which was quite generous at that time. So instead of taking production to Mexico, I just took all that back to India. And then over time, we have done business under the Faded Glory label for importers here in the US. We have done George in design. And it spread quite a bit because we had to have an office in China and India, and production for fabrics and raw materials, and production was spread out depending on category. At that time, there were quotas that we had to be very conscious of because they were expensive. So we were producing in Nepal, we were producing in Bangladesh, India. And of course, apparel is something that you have to be on a constant journey to find the lowest cost, the cheapest labor places. And that's what took me to Africa. We started outsourcing in Kenya. And interestingly, I ended up in Madagascar, a nice little island off the coast of South Africa. We ended up setting up a factory there, close to 500 employees. Really enjoyed it. Needed very little supervisory efforts from my part as an owner. I had tremendously qualified managers and the whole team, and an employee base that really, took it onto themselves that this is our factory. It wasn't where there's a management and there's a worker. This was our factory, and we all benefited from it. Really high quality stuff, great efficiencies. It was quite a pleasure being there. And then again, when everything starts doing good for you, the US decided Madagascar is not in favor anymore. So at that time, we decided to move that factory to Haiti. Haiti was this is right around 2010, right after the earthquake, when most businesses were running away. A friend of mine connected to the USAID asked me if I would think of finding some way to create jobs in Haiti. And so that's how we ended up there. We set up a similar factory there. Took us a little longer curve in training, developing, and creating the same systems we had in Madagascar. But as we came towards 2017, 2018, we had this plan about the marketplace, and started forming a team in India and again in Pune of developers, UI, UX, and graphic artists. And that basically started out with a simple idea that can we really create a seller-centric marketplace, one that really cares about sellers, promotes their pains. Like returns is almost 20-25% of an online seller's equation. It hurts paying shipping both ways. And so this website is basically, like I said, it's a pure marketplace play. We are not in the game of onboarding sellers, learning what does good, and bringing in products ourselves.
Yeah.
We have made a promise to any seller that onboards that we will never compete with them. That's one. Second, we have put enough functions in place that a brand owner can be comfortable that his products will not be knocked off and sold by people that he never knows about. And what we have seen, we have done a little study is, and in a sporting goods area, is over the last 30, 40 years, there are some iconic brands, medium-sized, who have done fantastic. I mean, they've gone from startups to $200 and $300 million companies, but on the backs of these retailers who has, on a micro level, promoted their brands to consumers that walked into their stores. Now, because everybody feels a need to go online and direct to consumers, brands have started that too. They cannot stay back. But it has created a little friction between brands and retailers. This really has put a retailer into a bind saying, how can I compete with my supplier, with the brands that I carry? Because naturally they can afford more advertising. They can mark their prices down more than I can ever do. So we've built a platform where both of these parties can really sell on and work together. So every brand owner who signs up on us will always know who else is selling their brands and at what price points.
Well, it really is an exciting. It really is an exciting model, and as I mentioned, I've had an opportunity to dig into it, and I'm absolutely looking forward to using it myself. I want to back up a little bit because, to hear you tell your story about, tennis pro and then hurting the shoulder and taking the drive, and then all of a sudden you're in the apparel manufacturing business, and then you talk about opening a factory here and opening a factory there. You talk about these things like they're no big deal, but for me, my head is absolutely spinning because how in the world, you said your father had been an entrepreneur, but had you had any exposure at all to the garment business growing up?
No.
So for you, sorry to interrupt you, but so for you to, here you are living in a country that has not been your home. You've blown out your shoulder, having these dreams of playing competitive tennis, and so that's gone. And so then you just out of the blue decide you're going to jump into an industry that I'll say almost nothing about, because it's not like you grew up exposed to it. And then all of a sudden you're opening new factories, and it just blows my mind. Going up to Wharton to take a class and learn about this. I mean, who does these things? I mean, what a remarkable story. I'm curious about, some of the folks that you have, partnered with beyond your wife, some of those people that have been the we in your story as you've stood up factories in India and in Africa and in Haiti. Who have been some of those key folks that have been with you and kind of helped you along this path, along this journey?
One thing, Matt, I do need to say, yes, there have been quite a few folks who have, helped me along the way. And without them, none of that would have worked. One thing that really allowed me to go out and do crazy things without any regard to the failure aspect of any journey is I had a partner who never made any demands or any requirements from a monetary standpoint. So I never felt the pressure from my girlfriend at that time to wife until now. Um, Never felt the pressure that money is the driving force behind maintaining a relationship.
Hmm.
So she's always been the backbone of this.
Hmm.
I was lucky enough, just as it's just to give you an example. Um, I had approached Wilson several times over a period of 3 months. Um, and it was always where you're too small, I'm not interested. Um, the gentleman who handled their VP of sourcing and manufacturing happened to drive through our town on a motorcycle, and just took onto himself to just drop in to see, this guy's bugging me. I'm just gonna take 2 steps in, see what he has, and take off. And so it happened where, again, I always feel that people have to get to know you, or in a short distance, or there are people who seem to respect uh, the other person getting a feeling, a vibe that they can be trusted. And so that's where he felt comfortable in giving me a test, which I performed. I mean, apparel business is not something where you can do a 9 to 5 job.
Yeah.
We were there in the factory from 5 a.m. till night, making sure things were getting done. And in the same fashion, just as he gave me a chance, I performed the test well, and we grew that business the same way, where we were very receptive to everything that VF wanted from their Jansen's office. So all I knew when I started moving countries around is hire people that I feel I can trust. Knowledge is there, technical aspects are there. We can always buy those through consultants. But if I can carry a few good people with me that I can really trust, people that were in charge of all the check signings and payrolls and the whole bit. And I was lucky to find those people.
Yeah.
So I've always trusted people first, and with the hope that I will get that back. Of course,
Yeah.
it not always does that happen, but you have to try.
So trust has been kind of a pretty big theme in this conversation so far. You talk about the bank that really didn't have a good reason to lend you $60,000, but they liked you and decided just to trust you. And then Wilson, the same thing. There was no reason for them to do business with you, and then they came and checked you out and got to know you. Like, we're gonna trust this guy. And my sense is, even the story of your wife being, willing to kind of go forward without putting pressure on you, is all about trust. And then you've been able to push that forward in the other relationships as you've brought people into your organization, into your family.
It has helped me a lot in building a good supplier base. Matt, as you know, when you start buying big quantities, especially in China, they want letters of credits and they want advance money, and then you're just praying that you will get the right khaki and not 16 shades of khaki. And so we learned that we need to have people on the ground. So we had quality controllers before any container left. But then I did not dance around changing suppliers like quite a few people do for a few pennies here and there. And I've had some that have stayed with me for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
But what they did in return was also stopped requiring any advance money or letters of credit. So just on a paper PO, we are issuing orders for 100,000 yards of fabric. with 60-day terms. Um, these suppliers were pretty courageous. And I returned that favor. Not a single yard was claimed falsely for bad quality or deducted from their invoices or any of that. And that helped. So I think you're right. Looking back, my requirement on a trust level, or looking for people to do business that I can feel that safety net, has helped me get here.
Yeah.
If you don't mind allowing me, is Turtle's Egg is also based on a very strong reason per se, a socially responsible reason. Over the years, and I've been constantly traveling, except for the last year and a half, 2 years, is at some point you start seeing value in giving back. Whether it is whatever you can afford to give back to St. Jude's or somebody who's cooking meals and helping homeless people. This need, there are quite a few genuine charities out there that do tremendous work. I do know that I don't have that ability to go out and do what they're doing. But the next best thing is I can provide them funding so they can continue doing their work and not spend half their time and money raising funds. So in a nutshell, Turtle's Egg, and we have a tagline called a socially responsible marketplace. It is purely to create a sustainable funding for charities. And so we don't charge sellers anything extra other than the transaction fee, nor do we charge customers anything to collect donations. We take it out of our potential income and divide it into all the charities that sign up. They owe us nothing. They don't have to pay us anything, just sign up, promote your charity, promote your mission statement, and you will be a beneficiary of a certain portion of our revenue as well as profits. And so I think I'm on the right track to doing good. And I hope our sellers feel the same way.
Yeah. It really is something special. I mean, for one, just to visit the site and do a quick scan, item and price. It's very intuitive from a shopper's standpoint, but when you really dig into what the organization stands for and how it conducts business differently, the promises, again, back to what we've been talking about with trust, the promises that you're making to your seller partners, it really is something special.
Thank you.
So what's your long-term vision? Like you said, you've been working on this for quite some time. You've got a dedicated team of folks that are out there continuing to work on the site and obviously recruiting, sellers and onboarding and so forth. But what's your vision for this? What's that kind of that big, hairy, audacious goal that you're pursuing?
We would like to have a strong collection of sellers who are based in the US. Nationality is irrelevant, but they have to have their stock warehoused in the US, so that they are part of the US community, and that will help us, whether it's a small online seller sitting in Fayetteville, Arkansas, or Clarksville, Tennessee, it's irrelevant. Or if it's a big time brand owner sitting in New York, all we want is for them to have a warehouse based in the US, promote. It's basically, we allow customers to see who they're buying from.
Yeah.
where they are, so that the sellers can create a relationship with the customers that they buy.
Yeah.
That is a little unknown in other marketplaces. And rightfully so, Matt, because everybody is trying to protect their customer. That is their value proposition. With Turtle's Egg, we are taking this on. Some may call us naive, but not really. If a seller does well through us, he will see value in continuing to use our platform. There will always be a few who would like to take a customer offline and make them buy on their own sites. So be it. We think we will still get our own share,
Yeah.
and keep growing. Yes, no business can ever be successful if it's not customer centric, but there are ways to combine a seller and a customer centric proposition that would, help just by creating awareness to customers that, hey, before you order that, make sure you're really size 34 and not size 30 that you thought you were in high school.
Yeah. Right.
It happens all day long. Apparel is the biggest category that gets returns, for simple reason. So just creating awareness, creating a responsible buying habit and a responsible selling habits. And we will make sure that the sellers are genuine. So there's no somebody sitting in Shenzhen, China, creating a storefront saying we're in LA. So we have systems in place to verify who they are and where they are, and give a customer a comfort level that, yes, they really are getting their product from who they see is. And so from a long-term, there are two ways to approach anything, Matt. One is set a goal and say, I'm going to be $1 billion company in 8 years and go public. Mm-hmm. Or set a set of rules and an agenda and just practice that. And if we reach that lofty level, great, we'll enjoy it. But we will continue to do what we have set out to do. Hopefully enough sellers will see value in coming onto our site.
Yeah. Well, again, the word trust has come out again. You're trusting kind of both sides of the market. Obviously, you're giving shoppers the opportunity to develop a relationship with the individual sellers, develop a trust-based relationship that the product is what they say it is, and it's going to show up when they say it's going to show up, and it'll perform the way they say it'll perform. But then the other side of that trust factor is, the trust between you and those sellers, and ensuring that you're going to work hard to be everything that you've promised those sellers you would be, and they're going to maintain some integrity and dealing with you and not doing these side deals. So it's just amazing to me how every aspect of your story is really about giving and receiving trust, that kind of that two-sided relationship built on trust. I have to ask you, where did the name Turtle's Egg come from?
We live in a little town called Naples, Florida. It's a seaside town, and the community here is very conscious of looking after those hatchlings that happen all along the beach. And it's just the fragility of those eggs is very similar to what our giving back concept is all about. It has to be nurtured, it has to be looked after. And once those little hatchlings swim back into the ocean, they're on their own. And so the whole platform is a it's basically an opportunity to make sure that both sides, especially the sellers, grow. And for that, we have a free always plan. So nobody has to pay us anything until something sells. But we also have a pro seller plan, and it's extremely low cost. It's just like $9.99. But with that, we actually promote the product, we promote the brand on social media. So whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, we create graphics for them. We do the posting. And so that support is what a lot of the small and medium-sized brands need, because they really don't have the resources or a team to handle their marketing efforts. It's expensive. We all know that. Big companies, yes, they can do well on Facebook, spending $1 million a month. A small retailer cannot do that.
Yeah. Well, and the reality of your business is, I mean, you've learned so much. And you mentioned earlier that in the apparel business, it's all about efficiency. It's about finding the inexpensive labor, and ultimately it's about passing on savings to a very demanding consumer.
Yes.
And you've been able to do very much the same thing in this business. You're able to offer tremendous value in your marketplace because you've been very creative about the teams that you have put together to build this and to support this and to grow this over time. So really a fascinating story. As I mentioned before, I've got a consumer brand that I've been working on that I will absolutely put on the site, and we're going to give it a go. But thank you so much for making the time to have this conversation. As we wrap up, well, what would be the very best way? And I know that we're going to schedule a live event and give folks an opportunity to come and see a demo and kind of watch what that onboarding looks like. But if somebody was interested in learning more about Turtle's Egg and having a conversation with you or someone on your team about how they can bring their brands onto the platform, what's the very best way to engage you or your team?
One is you can go onto our site. You can email us, and you can phone us. We basically will, if somebody's not familiar with the onboarding process, we will walk them through. They can also get us to help them set up their products. A lot of smaller people who haven't the experience to go onto Amazon or other marketplaces, we will even do that for them. So we have a team that will talk to them and walk them through once they register. But all the pre-registration questions, they can email seller@turtlesegg.com, or they can come directly to me. It's Yatin S@turtlesegg.com. I'm always open. There's no such thing as only I do this, and we all are in this to figure out how we can help that seller on board. And it usually takes about an hour with us.
Okay. Well, one of the other things that you and I have talked about is you're, as an entrepreneur, as someone who's been successful because you've been such a great, listener, you're hungry for feedback. So if there are people, and there are lots of folks that I know and would call friends within the supplier community that I think are going to be fascinated by this platform, but they're going to also have some advice on ways perhaps to make it better or at least different. And I know that you're really hungry for that sort of feedback as well. So if anyone has any feedback for Yatin and his team about the site, I know that they would really appreciate hearing from you.
Absolutely, yes. And looking forward to that.
Well, Yatin Shelar, my friend, head turtle at turtlesegg.com. It has been fun. You and I have had multiple conversations over the years, but this has been so much fun because it's given me an opportunity really to understand not what you did, but how you did it, and kind of the view for going forward. Thank you so much for making the time for this conversation, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you again very soon.
Absolutely, Matt. Thank you.
Have a great day. So long.
You too. Bye-bye.